to kill the music as much fun as it was. I found a bunch of interesting music on an open source art site, and so it's been interesting to flip through, see what people are putting up there, and seeing just kind of how much good content is up there, because that's always kind of the problem with open source anything, right? Open source code, open source art, open source music, sound effects, whatever it is. There's always a quality barrier that worries me when I see open source plastered on things. So you have to spend some time and kind of look at the content and say, yeah, you know, I could get by on this. Or, you know, you look at it and you just go, nah, this doesn't fit, or this doesn't work right with my style. There's always some reason. Always some reason. So today, as my text doesn't seem to want to play nicely with my scene, there we go. Today's task, I'm trying to limit and redefine how much text is on a screen. Because right now, if I sit here and I type and do this a whole bunch, I'll eventually scroll off the bottom. And even though I'm still typing right now, you don't see it. And that's just because the text buffer just keeps getting larger and larger. And we never really limit that. And that's not how a real command line works. You're typing in here, and eventually I go off the bottom of the screen, and it's going to start scrolling for me. It's kind of hard to tell because, well, I type the same thing a whole bunch of times, but if I start doing, here's my long line of text, and then if you note, it scrolls upwards, because what it does is, the buffer is only so large inside of a real command line program, and so when you type something that takes up space, you have to remove something from the top in order to keep it shifting, and so it shifts upwards naturally. And so we need to emulate something of that. Otherwise, this isn't going to feel like a real command line interface. And I might actually, after I do this, have to find some way to compress the text or make it more readable, because the one thing to note right now is that there's a very limited amount of space here on screen. Even if I, okay, I can't pull this down much more, can I? What if I make the lines smaller? Does that help? No, it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Thank you, Unity. I appreciate your interesting UI choices. Interesting is definitely, I think, the word I'm going to stick with there. So what we have to do, we have a screen class that controls all the input and output. Specifically, all it has is this text reference, and it updates the text that's on the screen every time you change it. So right now, I actually think I might even be so lazy as to update it. Yeah, it looks like I update it every frame. It's not the end of the world. It just, we may want to fix that in the future. Make it, whenever the text changes, we update it, just so we're not messing with Unity too much. Anytime you do something every frame and change it every single frame, it worries me slightly, especially since Unity is such a black box when it comes to the engine. You don't know what's going on the inside. It could be that every time I change the text, it generates an entirely new mesh, which throws more stuff into the garbage collector and could be causing trouble. I don't know. At least not until I run a profiler. So, always a little wary whenever I do stuff like this. Also, I note, okay, good, my commenting here looks nice. I like to separate my code in Unity these days. I have the Unity functionality, or the functions that Unity itself calls. These actually, this is the helper functionality. These are private functions that are only called by this class. The update text, the process input, all of these don't go outside of the existing class. And then we've also got at the top, we've got all the public functionality. So all the things that everyone else can make use of. Whether you're getting the current directory, whether you're checking the file system character or adding things to the screen buffer, all things that everyone else should have access to. But we want to make sure that we kind of well define what the interface everyone else is going to be using this is. So that's why we have some of these in place as they are. So what we really want to do is this add to screen buffer. I think this is what everybody uses to add text to the screen. And I'm just going to double check this real quick. I do see already a couple spots where I'm, for lack of better words, being naughty. I'm doing things in an incorrect manner. Specifically, you'll note, and this might be hard to read, and I'm sorry if it is, you'll note in some spaces I have the add to screen buffer, where I use my own function, which is good, because it limits the number of places that I'm modifying this screen text variable. This should be updated and changed in very, very few places. So the screen text, I think, should only be changed in one place. And the screen buffer should also probably be changed in a minimum number of places as well. So, for instance, here's me not following my own rules. I have my own screen buffer plus equals and some other stuff attached to it. This should not do that. This should use the add to screen buffer function. And it's a little difficult sometimes to know or just remember when you need to use functions versus use existing variables. Sometimes I almost wish I could hide entire variables from the programmer altogether, or from myself in this case, because it seems kind of silly to have this floating around when it's completely unnecessary. So let's see, is there anywhere else I'm messing with it? No, that looks like the only spot where I'm doing that. And if I want to really make sure, I can do a .text check and make sure that I'm only modifying things in the right place. Here you'll note screen.cs only has two places where text objects are modified. One is the screen buffer, one is the screen text. And remember, the screen buffer is everything that's on the screen in total. Versus the screen text are things that are permanently on the screen and cannot be modified by the user. So the screen buffer is essentially a culmination of the screen text, the player input, and the little blinking cursor at the end. So now that we've kind of cleaned that up, and let's reclaim some of our dev space here. So each time you add something to the screen buffer, we need to make sure that if we add a new line, that we scroll ourselves if we have too many lines. So hopefully, and this is the part where I get a little iffy sometimes, and I'm going to pull up some documentation on either my second monitor or I might just pull it across, because you guys staring at the same code and the same screens I am might be helpful. So first off, we need to figure out how many lines of text are in this screen buffer. We could do that probably one way. So the most brute force way I know of is we could just go into, the screen buffer, and we could just count how many new lines are in here, right? Easiest way to do it. I don't know if there's like a count character. I don't want to also have to go through this character by character, but we might have to. The upside is this only happens once, every once in a while. It's not like it happens every frame. Ooh, here we go. The index of any, close. I wish I could get all indices, or last index of. Is there anything in here that can help us? I mean, honestly, the screen buffer is little more than a string, so there is probably some way to count the number of lines in a string in C#, right? Somebody's got to have figured this one out already for us. Question becomes, number of lines. Okay, so some people are suggesting on the internet that I use a string split. That's one way to do it. The only downside I have about string split is it generates an array of strings, which is going to be food for the garbage collector. And I don't exactly want to mess with the garbage collector if I can help it. That said, really? Is that the only thing people are suggesting? Yeah, it looks like just a for each through every character in the string is really the fastest way. That's really funny. Okay, well, whatever. Gotta do what we gotta do, right? So int numLines is going to start out at 0. We're going to say for each character in our string, which is our screen buffer. And there are smarter ways to do this, right? Every time we program anything, anytime we program anything at all, we have to consider the trade-off between execution time and space and memory we're taking. So I could store the current number of lines that currently exist in the screen buffer, and each time I add to the screen buffer, I could just have another integer that sits on the side and gets updated each time. You say, oh, add text. Okay, I search text for the number of lines, and then I just chop them off from the string. Not terrible, but you know, that kind of shifts into the, well, I take up more memory, but I speed up the execution a little bit. I'm not too worried about execution time, so I'm going to go with the brute force method here. And Epic Blueberry is asking, why is messing with the garbage collector bad? Games like to sit, so this is specifically a gaming thing, with anything that has a garbage collector in a game. You have to keep in mind that the garbage collector has to spend a certain amount of time referencing variables, and when it finds something to throw away, it deallocates a lot of stuff all at once. So my nice clean 60 frames a second might drop to like 20 or 30 frames per second if I have a particularly large garbage collection hit in the middle of my game. So we try and avoid allocating things that the garbage collector is going to want to eat up afterwards, because it keeps us from hitting the garbage collector so often. It's kind of an inevitable thing that the garbage collector needs to run. We just allocate things too often. But we can at least try and mitigate it a little bit here and there, which is why arrays are reference objects, and so they are garbage collector bait. Anytime you allocate a reference object and then proceed to stop referencing it, it becomes garbage collector food. Just food for thought. I've been using the word food a lot. Maybe I'm hungry. Just maybe. Un poco. So, for each character in our screen buffer, we're essentially going to just say if it's /n, right? If the character is equal to the new line character, then surprise, surprise, numlines ++. Habit of mine is to put ++ first. The prefix is technically faster than the postfix, although in this day and age, that may or may not actually be true anymore. And another thing to keep in mind is that our text is always a line long. Even if it's an empty string, it exists on a line. So I'm just going to start the count at 1 and say, oh, each time you find a new line, you're down another line. So even if we have some extra space or a blank line, we count it. So we've got the number of lines. Great. I'm going to toss... Am I? I am. I think I am. We're going to put a public integer here. And once again, this is Unity's programming style kicking in here. Unity says having public variables of any kind is not that bad. And as a C++ programmer, I cringe. As a C# programmer, I'm able to sit here and understand the use case. Public variables in this case, not so bad. And this int is going to be the max number of lines. So I guess max screen buffer line count. Is that a little too verbose? I think that might be. Max screen buffer line. Line count. I like the full name. I like the verbosity of that. It's not... It is a little overkill. I could say max buffer line count. I like that better. We'll hang on to that for now. I like that. And actually, come to think of it, this isn't something I should be able to define. This should be something that's defined by the size of the command line that's on the screen. So actually, this probably will be private. And we just need to calculate it. Question is there an easy way to calculate this? Get max string? No, get max line count text element in Unity. Sometimes Google is really your friend, and that's really what I'm doing right now. I'm just like, hey, look, Google, how do I do this? Get the number of lines from a new UI text. Might be what I'm hunting for. Text.preferred height. There we go. That might be what I'm hunting for. There might also be something else here. Limit the number of lines being showed. Maybe. The other thing to do is if you don't find what you're hunting for, it's always good to just kind of pare things down a little. See if... oh, actually, no, documentation. Why am I not doing that first? Unity, do you have anything in your text documentation? So we have this thing called a cached text generator. No idea what this is. Character count, characters, line count. Hello. I like that. I'm going to hang on to it. Let's see if we can find anything else here. I also see a flexible height here as part of the text. I don't know if that's what I'm hunting for, though. Minimum height, preferred height. Also interesting. Vertical overflow. No. Not what I'm hunting for there. Calculate layout input horizontal. There's a lot of stuff in here. You'll note Unity has a lot of functions that it likes to call, and it needs to be public because of that. But it also doesn't... their documentation on some of it is lackluster. Number of text lines generated. Okay, what does this mean? What are the text lines? What are we talking about here? Is this the max height, the max number of lines that can fit in this text box? Like, sometimes you just have to do a little experimentation. Otherwise, you just don't go anywhere fast. Transform, canvas, canvas renderer. Okay. Thanks, Unity. I see very little, unfortunately, that is terribly helpful here. I'm kind of curious about that cached text renderer, if that might be a cached value of just how many lines fit within this thing. Because it has to know when to start cutting it off. Otherwise, we would see the lines keep going, even though technically they're outside of the text area. Line spacing bar. Yeah, let's just kind of see what we can find. Let's do a little science here. So, max buffer line count. We'll just say it's equal to, let's see, text dot. Sorry, that's the screen text. I need to use the right variable names here. Otherwise, we're not going to go anywhere. The character count. Where was it? Line count. Here we go. Number of lines of text generated. And because I don't feel like doing the breakpoint stuff at the moment, we're just going to output it to the debug log. See what it says. Science time. Grab our trusty console. And it says 0. Unhelpful. Incredibly unhelpful, in fact. I noticed that it does have these layout properties, and that might be something we can use. The 63 down here in the lower... Oh, you can't see that. It's behind my face. Okay. Wah! There we go. So here we have a preferred height number. That's 63. That might be 63 pixels per line. Might. That might also just be the preferred height of the object. I don't actually know if that's correct or not. I'm going to have to poke at this a little more to see if I can find anything else. Because we have this overflow here. So this tells us that they know when our text is off the screen. The question is, how do we get them to tell us that the text is out of the screen? Because that would be nice. I am deity says that layout stuff is the size of the GUI element. Rats. Okay, I was hoping that that would be something I could use. Granted, I should already know this, right? I can just hit, whoops. I can just hit enter a bunch of times, and this will tell me just how many lines. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So I have about 20 lines of text here before I'm off the screen. And I'm using a monospaced font, so I know, well, no, the monospaced font actually doesn't tell me that. Just my counting tells me I've got about 20 lines. And I know line widths are always the same. Always, always, always. If you want to get the number of lines in a text box, why not just get the text content and split the string by quotation marks? So I know how many lines of text I currently have. I'm trying to find the max programmatically because I hate hard-coding values like this. Whenever I hard-code something like this, it's just messy. We don't want to hard-code things if we can help it. So I'm trying to hunt down the max number of lines. Now, you'd think that this text element would also maybe have like the size. Oh, here we go. If I can find the font, I can find the size of the font for a given string and extrapolate the height that I need based on the pixel size of the thing and the size of a single line. There we go. This is, I think, our solution. So I just need to find a way to get, and I've done this before in other languages and in other systems, so you'd think they'd have a way to do it here. Let's see here. Step 1, we need to actually grab the font out of this thing. And I don't mean to keep jumping around in the file. Hopefully that's not driving you guys too crazy. Let's see, we go into the screen text, we grab the font. Now that we have the font, is there a line height in here? Oh, yes, thank you very, very much. I'm just going to toss that in a temp variable for now. So we have a line height, and I assume this is in pixels. Line height of the font. Thanks, Unity. You have the best. The absolute best documentation sometimes. Unity font line height. GUI stuff. No. You know what? We'll just look up the font class and we'll go from there. Switch to scripting. Line height. Please tell me something more. This is the line height of the font used to align lines of text above each other. I don't know. You'd think they realize they're making a game engine for other people to use, right? They could just say it's a pixel height, it's a point height, it's it's in, imperial units, it's the number of inches it will be on your screen. Anything would be nice. Whatever. We have the screen buffer, which is, we have the screen text, which is the text element. We should be able to get its size pretty easily. Rect transform dot, I believe I can size delta, and that will give me the height. Is that a float? That's a float, isn't it? Yeah, that's a float. Okay, cool. Yeah, I do understand that they do want me to do a lot of stuff via their interface. Unfortunately, their interface leaves things to be desired, for lack of a better word. So I'm actually going to go so far as to clamp this thing down to an integer, because I don't believe in partial pixels. Just a thing. And what we can do here is, now we can say max buffer line count is the screen height over the line height. And that should give us what we need. I'm going to leave the debug log in there just in case terrible things happen. Just in case. Okay, it still says 0. Oh, why is that 0? That should not be 0. Ceiling to int may be better. I'm really curious what these numbers are. Let's just, for kicks, put each of these into their own debug line. I'm really, really curious what's going on here. Screen text, rect transform. Is there just a size here? No, size delta y. I'm just going to take a quick peek inside this thing again, because this rect transform should have something for me. The question is what? If there's like a boundaries in here, if there's another rectangle I can use. Is that? Yes. Oh, okay, I might be using the wrong thing. Let's toss this in 1 too, because who knows? One of these is magical and exactly what we need. Ceiling to int might be better, but ceiling to int might also push this thing off the screen. So I might, if there's that like fraction of a pixel, it might push it below the box. And I want to make sure that my text stays in its little box. Genetic species settlement was, unfortunately, at least for now, abandoned. I need to finish something. And that project had a scope that was made for 2 people, and then it was just me making it. And unless I wanted to be working on it for the next decade or so, which I'd rather not, I was a little happier with a smaller project that I could blast something through. And maybe once my motivation and my confidence levels were up a bit, I'd go back to either a bigger project or try something else. But I need to finish something, and so that's really what this project is about. It's about getting something done, putting it on the internet, and letting people play it. Yeah, I'm DD, that's totally right. The 18 and 422 look completely relevant. Now I just need to figure out what those numbers are. So the 18 is the first one, so that's our line height. We know line height is fine. So that's not a problem. And I'm going to assume that's 18 pixels tall, which is a decent height, especially since it's font size 18, right? Font size 18. 18 pixels tall, maybe? I never actually did learn exactly what that is. So here's one of our zeros, so that's meaningless. But this looks like something we could use. So I'm just going to toss that down here and see if that helps. See if that gives us a real decent number. 18 over 422 gives me 23. I counted 20 lines. It's counting 23. I'm curious if it's close. I'll give it that. My line spacing is standard. So I'm somewhat unsure of what's going on here. It's saying I have more space than I think I do. So let's just try using this number, and we'll tweak it later when it becomes obvious that that is incorrect. Maybe it's right. It could be right. I may have just failed at counting because the lines did all look the same. So we have a buffer line count. Good. Good, good, good. Let's see here. 18 is the height if the line spacing is 0. Interesting. Very interesting. Probably a multiple of 18? Maybe. I wonder if there's some font size to pixel conversion I can find. Okay, here we go. I have a font size conversion chart where we can see that at 18 point font, it should be 24 pixels, which you may note is, okay, it's, wow, my brain just turned off. So that's about 6 pixels on each side of leeway. It makes me wonder if there's some way I could look that up. Can I get a text meshes font size to pixel size? Hey, somebody asking the same exact thing I do. So this is one of the nice things. Before I was using a C++ engine called C4, and it was a great engine. Beautiful, lovely engine. The issue I had was that it's not nearly used as often as something like Unity. And so the nice thing about Unity, it's so used that chances are somebody's asked the same question I have already, and it makes my life that much easier, because since somebody's asked it, hey look, there are answers. Dynamic text, no, I just want some kind of conversion. That's the only thing that I really want to know about. Can I know? So there's a calculate size of a string, and that looks like what people are. You can use GUI utility.getRect where you pass where you pass in the GUI content, GUI style, get back a rectangle. Interesting. Now GUI stuff I think is the old system. I don't think that's the new UI stuff. So unfortunately this might not. Yeah, this doesn't look helpful. That's unfortunate. That is really, really unfortunate. Is there... I do see, though, GUI utility might have something in here that's helpful. Or maybe there's just a straight-up UI utility. I do realize that I'm looking in probably the wrong namespace. I probably want to be in the UI namespace. Just maybe. It's always good to know your namespaces when working with something like Unity, where they break everything into their own bits and pieces. I'm DD making the same points, same good points that I am. I hope they're good points at least. Interfaces, enumerations. I was hoping there'd be a utility class hiding somewhere in here, because if I could just grab a utility class and be like, hey, what's the height of this string? It'd be nice. Font data, line spacing, max size. That's an integer. That may or may not be totally helpful. UI.font data. Yeah, that's just defaults for things. That's not going to help us either. Come on. Give me something to work with here, Unity. Layout utility. It's got utility. Min height. Returns the minimum height of a layout element. I don't think that's what I'm hunting for. I really don't. Font metrics. Ooh. Did somebody hit the jackpot for me? Dang it, I see GUI style. That's not what I want. Close but no cigar. Sorry, genetic species. Close. But no carcinogenic smoking devices for you. Scroll rectangle. Yeah, I'm really not seeing anything. I might have to futz this, if only just to keep this moving. I don't want to get stuck on anything for too long. I do wish there was some way that I could take font size and do that fit. Resize text max size. Get generation settings. Gosh darn it. Come on, Unity. Work with me here. Get pixel adjusted rectangle. Pixel adjust point. Like, these are all so close. But not quite. They don't feel like they are what I'm hunting for, which is really unfortunate. I see some protected stuff, some static stuff, some operators, yeah. Okay, well, we'll do what we can. See how we can kind of hustle this to get it to be what we want it to be. Because unfortunately, it looks like they don't have much in the way of all this text handling yet. We're pretty close with font size. What I'm going to do for now is I'm going to cheat a little bit and do something I'm probably not supposed to. But let's see here. To get to 24 from 18 is about, oh, it's like a 1/3 increase. Sounds about right. So we're going to take this and we're going to multiply screen text dot, do I have my line spacing here? Line spacing times 1 point, that's about 1/3, right? Increase it by 1/3. So if I drop this to 0, I will keep this 18. Oh. Let's see. Wait, I gotta get this right. Because if we set the line spacing to 0, actually that would zero this whole thing out, and that would be silly of us. Plus line spacing times, okay. This needs to end up in here again. There we go. But yeah, cool. And I just shift this to the end for good time's sake. So we have our line height plus the line height times whatever our spacing happens to be. Let's see, is that correct? So this would be our 18. This would be, there we go. There's our difference. That's what we're hunting for here. So if this is 0, doesn't really matter. We still have the rest. Yeah, okay, cool. I just realized that actually our line height should be up here. Sorry, don't mind me. Just doing things somewhat incorrectly. Screen, come on. Screen text, font, line height times this. Better, much better. Because that'll increase our line height, and then because line height goes up and is on the denominator here, that makes our max buffer line count go down. And I'm just going to toss the debug back in for a sec, just to make sure I'm doing this right. And it's having some float to int issues here. We actually want to overreact with our line height changes. 16 lines? That's a lot. Well, that's not actually a lot closer. Good enough. Good enough for government work. We'll see how that looks after we get this all working. So, start, great. It works. I'll leave the debug in because it'll remind me to check this and remove it later. Now, each time we add to our screen buffer, we've counted the number of lines that should exist. We then say, okay, is there any, I guess I'll call it overfill, overdraw, over buffer size is our max buffer line count minus the number of lines that actually exist. I is less than the over buffer size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start seeking forwards. I'm going to go from new line to new line and remove them from the buffer string until I've got nothing else. So what this is going to end up looking like is let's see here. We'll have what I call, I don't know, I'll call it the trim index. Something like that. We started at 0. Trim index is going to be equal to the screen buffer index of, which finds the next index from a certain point going forwards. So we're going to look for new lines, and this should, there's our start index, trim index. So this is just going to keep shifting us forward. We know that there's a certain number of lines here, so we can kind of assume this is going to be pretty safe. If the trim index, let's see here. I guess I could cut a whole lot of this out, couldn't I? I could say if the overbuffer size is greater than 0. Sorry. We need to turn that around. Because if it's the max buffer minus the number taken up, we're talking about how much space is left at the bottom. Need to fix some of that. Final step is screen buffer is going to be equal to the screen buffer substring, where we go from the trim index, and we can just say trim index to the end. We don't need to do anything more than that. So that looks good. Let's see if it all pans out. This will be interesting. So help. Let's get some stuff here on the screen. I still don't have any directories, apparently. Okay. Is it not shifting everything back up? That's my curiosity. It doesn't... Oh. We need to shift ourselves a index forwards, otherwise it's going to keep the previous new line. It's going to nuke all the text, but keep the new line that we didn't want. Oopsies. This is going to be trim index plus 1. A little offset is needed here. Once again, off by 1 errors, the bane of programmers everywhere. And now you can see heads upwards. And it actually doesn't look too bad. We could use some more lines. It looks like we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, so there's our 16 lines. We want to be closer to 20. So my math could use a little rejiggering, for lack of better words. And I know I'm doing a bad thing when I have these magic numbers here, but let's see. I guess we could go with a 6th. See if that helps. Instead of 3, this would be 1, something like that. That's not correct. There we go. Need to make that floating point. Let's try this again. 19 lines. Better, right? If we look at this and how it goes, that actually looks pretty good. I could live with 19. 19 does not look that bad. In fact, I'm kind of afraid that if I went 20... Let's see if I can pull this to 20 out of curiosity. See how that looks. Just the... Oh, that's not 20. The semantic in me is wanting to try this. The designer, so to speak, if one were to exist within my body somewhere. Which is questionable sometimes. I'm sorry, Game Vivo, but we are not tech support here. And yeah, unfortunately, I'd say just stop using Windows Vista. Let's see here. Oh, I'm still at 19 lines. What? Watch me jump to 21 or something. Oh, I need to be going down. That's why. I just need to find a number that works, right? I'm just trying magic numbers here. Here we go. Got 20. How does it look? Actually. That doesn't look too bad, huh? It kind of fits just right. Dang it. Okay. Yeah, 1/6 is 167. Let's try 0.15, right? I know I shouldn't be playing with magic numbers like this, But until we figure out a good font size to pixel ratio thing, yeah, that's fine. Okay, that looks good. Let's do that. Let's rip this out. You shouldn't be here. And is there anything else? Not particularly. Cool, so we've got our screen buffer, and it rolls exactly how we expect it to. Just kind of looking over my scene real quick. So I've got a main drive, so there should be files here. Oh, I've got files. I don't have any way to actually access them. Alright, one thing at a time. Save the scene. Hop out here. Commit things. Feature screen scrolling. I guess screen buffer. Truncation. Because that's really what we're doing, right? Every time the screen buffer passes a certain point, we just truncate the beginning, just so we force it to match. Alrighty. Screen is taken care of. We've got some instructor text that works. The instructor's still here. Let's actually add some commands in, because I've had some basic commands here, but these things are, let's see. They're ugly, for lack of better words, right? For every dir, I just prefix it with dir. For every file, I prefix it with file. Come on, Rob, I can do better than this. So since we finished up the first one so quick, and I feel like I've got some time before my sanity starts to crumble, because I've been making games all day at work. To come home and do more, not the worst thing. It's actually, I'm having a lot of fun. So when we crack open a directory like this, we see a lot of interesting stuff. Our dir prefix, we have the previous directory in here. So I'm going to move this to my other monitor, kind of shut you guys off a little bit from that information, but I want this to look somewhat similar. Actually, another question too. So I get volume. I get the drive, I get the label, I get serial number. I don't really care about serial number a ton. I like having the information there though. Okay, and then we also say what directory we're hunting through. And then we give all the directory information. Now, the downside is, you'll note that this text size is a lot smaller than our stuff. So it's going to be able to fit a lot more inside of its buffer, right? This is what our buffer would look like. So if we did another dir in a different directory, we already lose most of our last directory look. Can I ls in here? No, I can't. Of course I can't. Just curious. Who knows? It's Windows 10. It might. Doesn't, but it might. Okay, so we have dot. I'm not so worried about dot. We have dot dot. Now, that's a directory I always want to show off, unless... I think when you're on... Yeah, okay, when you're on root, you don't get dot dot. Fine. So, we'll just say... Whoops. If the current directory that we're looking through, so screen dot current directory, or even... So here's the other thing too. Dir is not just, oh, I typed this and it works, right? If I'm poking around in, say, my users folder, I can do dir C drive, and it gives me, whoops, and it gives me the contents of the C drive, right? You can give it an absolute path. So, path to inspect, we're going to start off in the current directory. But we need to ensure that if you, and actually let's look this up. I haven't actually looked this up before. Windows dir command. I'm really curious what all the various like command line syntax things are. I don't want to replicate all of them, but I want to replicate some. Like /p is really cool. I've got cats running around outside on my fence. /p is really friggin' cool if you've got too much stuff in a directory. /q, file ownership information. A little less interesting. Mostly because at least on my personal computer, oh, there's some differences here. You can see administrator versus, there is some information here that could be useful. Let's try my like personal directory. Okay, so there are a couple different users here. They're not really huge, amazingly interesting users, but they exist, right? If I go into my own personal folder. Okay, now you can see here's user versus here's system. I might add this back in on a different date. I really might. Wide string format. I don't really have space for wide strings is my problem. /A shows all kinds of interesting things. Wow, there's a lot in here. I might have to add information to the files just so I can access it again in this system, because holy heck, there's a lot going on here. Granted, all of these command line console things need to be pretty powerful, right? So it makes sense that this has a lot of parameters. I'm mostly interested in drive path file name, right? If I say, let's find a file in here, that. Okay, so that's the other thing to keep in mind. It looks like you can also give it a file name, and it hunts for that file name and only displays information on files who have that name. Can I wildcard this? Yes, I can. Okay, so that's also something else that's frightening, but is powerful and we should teach. Because remember, part of this is the teaching tool. We don't want to just have only things that further the game, but there might be some neat stuff in here that an advanced user could use. And, you know, a normal user might not think to do, oh, well, you know, who owns some of these files? And if you find different users, it might give you a hint. You know, it might be some of that spoilerific stuff I was talking about earlier. And by earlier, I mean last stream. Wow, there's a lot of work to be done here. That's fine. So path to inspect, I'm going to use their format. I like this format here. dir path file name. We're going to ignore everything after it for now, but we can clean that up later. Come back, add more features to it. For now, I just want path, drive path file name. I might even leave out file name for now. If only because, even drive and path are kind of scary. Because that can probably have wildcards in it too, can't it? Let's try some stuff. dir cdrive/u star. Okay, so we have to support wildcards all the way top to bottom in this system. So if I do dir r star, okay, yeah, interesting. Also, another thing to note, I did a lowercase r in wildcard. So that's going to mean that this whole thing is case insensitive. At least if I want to follow Windows standards. Because I should be able... It's case insensitive, but it insists on using the uppercase version of this folder name. It's like it does the search using a case insensitive search and then comes back and says, okay, cool. There's an uppercase version. That's all I could find, so I'm going to use that. Good things to know. Definitely good things to know. And if you guys have any questions while I'm, rambling on like a madman here, please feel free. Ask. Let me know what you think. It'll be good practice for me to answer questions, get back in the swing of things again. And it also might elucidate some things for those who are trying to follow along and might not understand the same thing. Let's see here. So first things first, check for args, right? We need to check if there are any arguments in the first place. Otherwise, this whole practice is kind of meaningless. We're going to start with the current directory. just in case. And the current directory is an actual virtual directory. Okay. So this isn't going to be a string. That's going to be an actual virtual directory. Now we say if args length is greater than 0, and we'll have to come back and clean this up later because right now we're going to work with the assumption that the only arguments that exist are drive name, path. For now I'm just going with those two. Drive path. That's it. After that we'll kind of expand later, but one thing at a time. So the screen is where I do a lot of directory path stuff. Maybe I shouldn't. I'm kind of thinking that I might need to move some of this because it seems like a silly place. Well, no, the screen is also kind of our file processor. Okay, I'll leave it. I'll leave it for now. Okay, step 1, detection of drive letter, right? The biggest hints here being it should be a character and a colon to start. So, let's see, if the second character is a colon, that'll give us a hint. There's got to be some way to do this. I'm tempted to say, I'm curious if there's some way that I've written already to check if a certain character exists. I don't think I have one though. Get full path. If the path is rooted, you return the path. Otherwise, get absolute current directory. This seems incorrect. Oh no, it's not. It's just, that's interesting. Okay. So step 1, we need to normalize our string somewhat. And that's what that is meant to do. So what this does is it takes the incoming string and essentially says if there is drive letter and colon at the beginning, this is a rooted file path and it's absolute. We don't have to worry about it. Otherwise it's relative and we need to do some manipulation on it. That should all happen in get full path. So we should be able to assume right now that we've got at least drive character at the beginning of this. And so I'm going to toss a new function in here. Get drive character from path. So, and our return is going to be kind of silly because if you can't find something, I don't really know what to return, right? That is, the null character is not a valid drive letter, therefore this should be a good return if we can't find anything here. So if you give it a bizarre relative path, it'll at least understand what it's going for here. We'll know that an error came back the moment we start to see a null character popping up. So if, let's see here, path index of the colon character is 1, then we are going to return path 0. So if we can find a colon in that first position, we're going to return the 0th position. I guess another smart thing to do, well, just for sanity's sake, the length has to be greater than 2 in order for us to have a drive character, right? C colon is valid, C colon slash is valid, so actually it just has to be greater than 1. But you still won't find that. So if the colon is the 0th character, that also won't work. I'm trying to think of any weird edge cases that might get caught if I don't include this. Although at this point, like colon would get caught. So let's try this. We say if the path length is greater than 1. Yeah, sure. No. Okay, so and ASCII? Dang it. System text. I need to figure out where this lives. There's a way to check in C# if something is alphanumeric. Get string, get double, get bytes. There is a way to do this. I know there is. I've done this before. Like, I know there's the regular expression way. I'd kind of like to avoid that if possible, because it should be. Okay, it's not a character thing, I'll give you that. Char dots. Get numeric value. Okay, close. Is control, is a digit, is letter. Should be a letter. There really should be no other way around it. Letter, number, punctuation, just double checking, making sure I'm not losing my mind, is a letter. I like it. That and that is a letter. Cool. That covers, I think, all of our bases. It pretty much ensures first character not only has to exist, but has to be a colon. 0th character has to be a letter. Great. Otherwise, we return garbage. I like. So we are going to get drive character, drive letter, character, letter. We'll see. From the full path. We need also a way to check that that drive exists. Otherwise, we'd look kind of silly. So let's see if we can find it. So we don't have access to this dictionary. So we need to add another helper function, which is fine. Honestly, there are going to be a lot of helper functions purely wrapped around path and file manipulation. Those alone are going to actually probably make up a majority of the systems that are in place here. So get drive character from path. Great. Public bool drive character is mounted. And all this will return is the mounted file dictionary. That could be better named. That could be a lot better named. Contains key. There we go. That's what I'm looking for there. So does the drive even exist? It should. I hope it would. We can actually go a step further and say, let's just return the drive itself. So if the mounted file dictionary does not contain the key, then we return null. Otherwise, we return the given drive. Hey Mo. Yeah, it's been a while, but hopefully I will stick around and finish something and give you guys something to play, give the world something to play. As a game designer, that's kind of your highest goal most of the time, is just like make things. But yeah, nice to see you here. Lots of old names coming back. Wumbo, I do remember from before as well. When I do dir now, when you do dir c now, it crashes with an index out of bounds. It shouldn't, because the first thing it should do is say, what's the index of the colon? And when it can't find it, it should fail that first, because this is a short-circuiting AND. So the two AND characters, if the first one is false, there's no reason to check the second one. So this will come back as -1, which is not equal to 1. So because that's false, that makes this whole statement false. Therefore, it should return garbage. Now, I do need to check for garbage. Well, no, I don't necessarily do I? So let's try this. Here's the virtual directory of my path, or of the... So I can actually kind of mess with path to inspect, because I know it's not our current directory anymore. So we'll just say path to inspect is the screen get drive. Now at this point, we know we've got the drive. If this is null, there's a problem. Specifically, that we can't find the drive that they should say exists. So if I say C drive, and the C drive exists, I should clearly look at the contents of that. If I say D drive, and you haven't even mounted the D drive to the system, something's wrong. So we've got the path to inspect is the drive. If it's null, we are going to say add to the screen buffer, no such drive is mounted. And actually, I'm curious. More science, right? System cannot find the path specified. I really hope that this is not ripping off of Microsoft's wording of things too much. I might go back through and do a string change later, for the linguistics of it, and also just to make sure that I'm not stepping on any toes by wording mine the same way Windows does. Now granted, no one should get pissed about this. It's just text on a screen. It's not like I'm taking, Star Wars and rewriting it into my game. Yet. No. No. But, just in case. So let's just check. I always like to check that things work. Virtual file system. Ew. Get drive dot. Can I get the root directory easily? Parent directory. Interesting. Get drive says it returns a virtual directory. That should be fine. But this is virtual file system. I have to think about this a little bit because this is a slight conundrum. Let's just swap this to file system for now. I'll think about this. This is an interesting conundrum to have run across. If the drive is null, do that. Cool. That should throw away at least. So if I say, first off, I haven't added the directory command to the screen. Probably should do that. Just maybe. Because remember, it doesn't instantiate anything unless you put it on an object somewhere. iWombo, it's not really a quiz. The idea is that eventually this will be a game that helps teach people. So for beginners, I should say. This game will have two sides, right? The obvious, straightforward side is going to be that it instructs people who have never used a command line interface before how to actually use one. So we're talking about creating directories, making files, messing with things in that respect. The other side is that there are going to be things, or I hope to have things, that are hidden inside the game that you guys won't probably see here on stream, honestly. I'll probably toss them in spoiler regions and keep them hidden from even you guys. And there will be a side of the game that has a story, and there are things hidden in the game that you can uncover. But it requires you to have certain command line interface skills. And so those are kind of the two things I'm going for with this. Haha! Okay, so if I do dir right now without anything, it uses my current directory. And you can see, oh, I can't change directory. I don't have a cd anything. That's fine. So if I do that, oh, it doesn't think that's right. It doesn't think that's a directory. I need to put a new line on the end of that. I just realized. Because certain things in the Windows world, if the command executes, if something happens, it does put a new line there. If I just hit enter, it does that. We're trying to see how close we can get. We're getting pretty close. Now, let's see here. So what I'm tempted to do, I'm writing all these little helper functions, but the helper functions are starting to string together into something that is not actually helping me as much as I'd like. Specifically, I'd like to be able to just throw a string at it and get the path back. And I have this get path from string. And this looks like it's honestly what I need. In fact, it really looks like that's what I need. It looks like I wrote all these little helper functions, and I already had a function that does exactly what I need. Great. Okay. Well, let's just fix that then. Get path from string args. And this will be our path to inspect. If the path to inspect is null, we'll give the usual errors. Otherwise, we need to, let's see here, screen, add to buffer. What are we adding here? We want a, what's the terminology here? Directory of. And then the path to inspect. Now this is something funny. I don't think I have it to string for going from absolute path or from a virtual directory object back to a string. Let's double check that is the case before I throw anything out here. Get file system character. So I actually don't need this. Right? Yes, I know that has a problem. I'll fix that in a moment. Congratulations, Mo. Getting through college, it's a difficult thing. Definitely hang in there. I know it can seem a little crazy at times, but just hang in there. You'll get through it. Any favorite classes you've hit so far? I'm kind of curious. I know I myself had a set of favorites that... wait a minute. Get file system character. Oh, okay. I needed that function, apparently. I had some favorite classes. When I first entered, I was actually a big fan of the lower level stuff. Specifically, I actually don't remember the numbers. I think it was CMPS, I want to say 15? Which was essentially, we were taught assembly language. Trying to think of a better way to do this. Right, any given directory, let's see here. Directory, well, directory won't have, okay, get, we'll call it directory to string. We'll take a virtual directory. I found it really interesting to be learning how assembly worked, because it's the lowest level. You're literally right up against the hardware. When you say put an integer into a register, you are doing physical work on that chip. And so even when you're doing something as simple as putting things in the right place and then telling it, okay, add these, great, toss it here in this result register. Now add this over here, do this, load this from memory, jump to this function. You're literally manipulating the bits inside of this chip, and it was really cool to be doing stuff like that. So that was one of my favorite like intro classes when I first got to college. These days, granted, I don't use those skills a ton. I actually used them a decent amount when I was doing shader programming. That was my second year. When I did shader programming, it came back to assembly language sometimes. And so I had to know some of that assembly was useful. Let's see here. So I just need to go parent to parent to parent back up, which is exactly what this does, hilariously enough. Except that instead of current drive, what I need to do is get the file system. I need to find the file system who contains that directory. So I'm going to say for each virtual file system in the mounted file list, because we only are going to check the ones that are mounted. Say drive character. Oh. And once again, we're using our null character for a bad drive letter, just in case we don't come across what we're hunting for. We say if let's see, the virtual file system, oh, I know. If the, where is it? Oh, do I not have that? Oh, here we go, root directory. If the root directory is the same as doing a little work here, bouncing around all over the place. Just trying to make sure that I do this right. Okay, so what's happening here? You guys may be curious. So this hunk here, this for loop I've got, does two things. One, it assembles the path until it reaches root, or the root directory. And then the other thing it does is it leaves this variable d at the root directory. So its parent is null. So now all we have to do is say, well, if any of these root directories is equal to this directory we have on hand, then we set the drive character, and we're done. Excuse me, I have somebody at the door, though. I'll be right back. Ah, the lovely sound. Ooh, of a girlfriend feeding me. What are these?
Candy.
Candy. Not laced. At least, I don't taste it yet.
You won't.
Give me another.
Have the whole bag, please. They're too gooey for me.
Watermelon rings. The interesting things she brings me from her health food store.
Hey, don't say those are are healthy. Those are not healthy. It's like straight sugar.
These things are totally healthy. Full of all kinds of... Okay, okay. Here we go. 100% vitamin C. I'm good. I don't need any more vitamin C for the day. Not at all.
Serving size is 4 pieces. So you've had a quarter of your vitamin C?
Alright, I'll get there. I mean, this is my dinner now, so...
None?
I'm busy eating my watermelon, thank you very much.
Good.
Anyway. Sorry, distractions, right? We have drive character. Okay, am I missing anything else? I don't think so.
You had dinner?
Nope. So, we've got the drive character. We're going to toss the colon immediately after it. Is it colon or colon slash? Colon slash.
Distraction number... whatever. Have you had dinner?
Alright. Sorry. Distractions, right? So, current drive. Here I was. Okay, here's my drive character. Colon slash plus the path. That should be all I need.
Pasta or mac and cheese? Pasta red or mac and cheese?
So at this point, I can actually nuke the contents of this and replace it with this directory to string function, because we don't want to repeat our functionality. It'd be kind of silly to do that. There we go. I actually don't even think I need this function. Let's see. Watch it complain about something. There it is. Get full path. So this should be directory to string using the current directory plus path. That should do the trick. Some other things that are complaining. Okay, it looks like I used that function just enough. Is that all? Alright, cool. So let's follow it up with the same thing here. Ooh, pointers. You have fun with that one, Mo. That one's going to be a pain, but hopefully not too bad. Pointers are, honestly, pointers are straightforward, but wrapping your head around them the first couple times can be incredibly difficult, especially depending on what they teach you first. I found people who have C# and Java experience as their first language sometimes have trouble with pointers. That's not always true, obviously. Big blanket statements like that are idiotic for me to make, but they can be more difficult sometimes, especially if your first language is managed. Directory to string, our path to inspect, directory of this, and we'll add another new line onto there just for cleanliness sake. I like new line characters. It keeps things kind of open, for lack of better words. I kind of want another new line after this. Just saying. New lines everywhere. And I might have to drop the text size, otherwise this might not. There we go. So, dir C drive / test dir. Hey, look at that. It's incorrect. But it got the string correct. That's what I care about, that directory of something. It got that right. So at least we're not completely losing our minds here. I think I'm going to save the wildcard stuff for another night, because that's going to be a lot of functionality on this path stuff. And I unfortunately don't have a ton of time before I got to take off again. So we'll kind of clean up and clear up what we've got done, because we did get some cool stuff done today. And then I'll call it a night, take some questions. In fact, if you guys have questions, throw them at me now, so I at least have some time to start formulating answers so I don't say stupid things off the top of my head, because I have a bad tendency to do that. Here's our path to inspect. Let's use that instead of current directory. So Mo, I had a professor like that too. He was, we called him the math professor who was stuck in a computer science professor's body, because honestly, he did love those like hard and fast proofs of things, and it was really annoying. I don't think files get any kind of mention, so I'm just gonna do this. Yeah, that should be good. We'll see how this looks. I'm trying to match an actual command line, so I may or may not be doing a great job of that in the first place. I should figure out a tab system so that these line up, so it says dir tester and then test file. That would be nice. Would be nice. So on the upside, now you can see this works, right? I said, what's in the directory of ctestdir, and then it jumps into there, and it says, oh, there's this test file in dir, which, forgive the crazy names, but I think that's actually what I named it. And in fact, if we want to double check, Unity has in its text files that I've created for it. So here's our directory on the main root, and here's our test directory, and there's our test file in the directory, whose contents we don't care about right now. Alright. Popping all the things. VWGTI, or maybe I should call you GTI 20T, asks whether I have any tips on just starting to learn programming. The thing I've said a million times, and I feel like I haven't said in a while because I haven't streamed in a while, but I'll say it again anyway, is that when you first start, do a couple favors for yourself. One is pick what you're learning programming for, because programming is a big field. If you just say, I want to learn programming for the sake of it, it's kind of difficult because there's a lot, right? You might want to know networking. You might want to do web pages. You might want to do hacking. You might want to do, basic scripting just to avoid some of the more mundane parts of computer usage in your daily life. You may want to make your own game. Pick what you want to do. And pick an easy, and I say easy, like really easy. Pick a really easy goal. I want to make Pong. I want to write a batch file that logs in for me, or starts Hearthstone for me, or I want to write a bot that plays StarCraft for me. Something basic. You probably don't want to do that last one because Blizzard can be a little touchy about running bots, but point made. Pick something easy, something that people have done a million times before but is new to you, and go out and do it. Learn what you need to know. Go out, finish your project, because the moment you start finishing things, there's a lot of motivation to keep going, to keep learning, and so that's a really good way to get started. If you can take classes, do it. There are a lot of really knowledgeable people in the world. Talking to them, taking classes from them, that's one way to do it. I'm going to stuff some watermelon in my mouth so I have a moment to think of any other thoughts and tips I might have. that's pretty much it. If you start there, it shouldn't be too difficult to really get yourself going. The other thing is break up the big tasks, the things that feel too big, break them up into little bitty pieces. Once you get them into little bite-sized pieces and you start knocking them out one after another, not only does it feel really good to do that, but it's also a really easy way to understand how some bigger tasks get done. If you say, I want to make a game, or I want to make Pong, start with opening a window. Then put a box on the screen. Then some text, and maybe accept user input next. You note how I'm breaking this into little tiny pieces. You know, the bleep and the bloop sound would maybe even be completely separate tasks for when the ball hits the paddles. Just step at a time, little piece at a time. Mo is asking for tips on dealing with a math professor and a comp sci major. Unfortunately, you just kind of gotta double down and figure the stuff out. I spent a lot of time learning how to do things that I never did again. I'm never gonna have to write a proof to show that an algorithm is O to the n time of like 2 or n squared. Programmers generalize it, and the generalized solution is 99% of what we care about. You don't actually tend to have to do math proofs to get around it. There are times when knowing the math is good. Computer science is a math-heavy major, so you got to know your math. I skimped very early in my college years on matrices, on basic derivatives, and also on some of my trig. And so I was really deficient when I hit my first internship. I spent a lot of time going back over that stuff for my internship because Sony expected certain things and I did not have them, and it showed. And so it became quickly apparent that I needed to not only know that stuff, but like trig, you need to know the back of your hand when it comes to, or you need to know it like you know the back of your hand. My apologies for completely destroying that quote. But you need to know trig. If you want to do anything with graphics programming, you need to know matrices. There's just no way around it. Understanding a 2x2 matrix is fundamental. Understanding basic 4-dimensional objects, especially in today's 3D graphics, is also fundamental. Gimbal lock is a painful thing you never want to run into on your own. So knowing how quaternions work, kind of a big thing. Excuse me. Dog is going off. My dog alarm. So yeah, really, unfortunately, with professors like that, you got to know what you need for the test, and then you got to make sure you know the requisite material afterwards. I don't know exactly what he's talking about, so I can't tell you how useful some of it will be, but comp sci is still a math-heavy thing. You can't dodge it. Sometimes you can get the computer to do the hard stuff for you, but if you don't know the difference between a dot product and a cross product, you're going to be in deep shit when you hit the industry. So knowing that stuff is really the best way through it. For me, it was, what was it? It was a lot of proofs that I ended up never using again. Just kind of how it goes. It depends on what part of the field you want to dive into. So yeah, best of luck with that, though. I know they can be a pain, but it's well worth it. They have some good stuff in their head. You just got to kind of pick it out of their brain. If you guys have any more questions, feel free. Throw them at me before I hop out of here, because I haven't eaten yet, aside from these things, which I've already heard one party in this room tell me that doesn't count. Even though this is almost this will be my 50% point on my vitamin C for today. Mo, I feel your pain. Unfortunately, you gotta play catch up. That 'tis life. In some very painful but meaningful ways. I had never touched a lot of back-end server stuff until my current job. So I had to play a lot of catch-up when I joined this new startup that I'm with. It's just a little too difficult to strive out on my own and assume I know everything. So I learned how to make web servers and REST APIs and all kinds of crazy stuff. I haven't touched Python a ton until now. Now I'm getting pretty decent at Python. I won't say I'm good at it, but I'm decent. Passable, maybe, would be a good word. Let's commit this stuff to the system while I'm thinking about it. I'm making sure that my fingers aren't sticky when they get back to my keyboard. I do think I want to make this smaller. Also, whoa, note a problem. Right now what I type is not on the screen. So I've got 20 lines here. What is going wrong? I'm off by 2 lines, which is not good at all. I have to think about this, figure out what's going wrong. Because I don't think this is an off by 1 error. It seems very silly that that would just be an off by 1 issue. It looks like it, though. It really does look like it. Nope, there it goes again, though. Look at that. I'm right off the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's our issue. Look at this. The wraparound from the helpline is pushing us off the bottom. Oh, crap. For lack of better words. This is something I'll have to spend some time thinking about because I don't have an answer for you guys right now. For now, the obvious thing to do is set it to overflow because now, even now, I still am not. Look at that. The dir command just kind of throws everything off the end. That's impressive. Because not only have I managed to break my own stuff, but I've managed to do so impressively, at least for me. This is a little more difficult of a task than I thought it would be, because this isn't just off by 1 issues, it's, Okay, quick thought. We're going to do a quick debug attempt on this. We know it's one of these 2 that's causing us trouble. Okay. So let's look at our screen for a moment. Now, here we go. No, not where I want to be. I want to be in this process input call. And I'm going to have to attach to the Unity process, the Unity editor in order to debug things. When I hit enter, we're going to have to walk through this and see just how many lines it seems to think exist.
Are you done barking? Okay, now you can come down.
So we've added the new text to our screen buffer, and you can see all the information is in here. And for us, this shouldn't be too difficult, right? Dang it, screen buffer, stay on screen, please. Here we go. Okay, so let's just do this by hand and figure out what's going wrong. So 1 new line, 2 new lines, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ah, apologies for the dog.
Remember where you just were? You're going back.
So, I totally just lost count. $16 lines. I think that's what I came up with. About 16. Which is funny because that shouldn't technically throw us off the bottom of the screen. In fact, that should be just fine. We have what? It says 22 lines, 19 total. So we're actually... Oh, 22 lines exist, and our total is 19. Okay, so we're going to have to do a little trimming. From 5... Interesting. That didn't seem to be working correctly. So even though it was starting at that index, it wasn't actually trimming more than a single line at a time, which might be our problem, that it doesn't understand how to trim more than just a line at a time. Once again, apologies for the loud noises that keep popping out. They're hurting my ears too. He's being, oh great, escorted. Dude, just toss him in the crate.
It's just barking.
I know, but it's loud. Sorry. I'm gonna try shifting this each time. See if that helps us out. Gives us that leeway we need. I might have been coding with the wrong thought in mind when it came to... Oops. I still have a breakpoint in here too. Let's remove that. There we go. That looks better. I did notice that our lines somehow found its way back to 19, which shouldn't be correct. This should very clearly be 20 lines worth. So I am curious what happened in our start function. Let's get rid of that so I have a little more space. Can see things. Oh, I know what's going on. Detach. Alright. How does that look? Okay. I could do some more work on it, but I don't think I need to bother you guys with any of this. I think this looks good. I think we're set. As Genetic Species says, I do need to spend some time figuring out how to figure out the exact number of lines, not just new lines, but also counting through the number of lines that wrap around. I didn't really think about that until now. I'll have to figure this out. This will be an interesting mind puzzle for the next couple days. That said, thank you guys for joining me. If you have any more questions, throw them at me now before I hop off. Otherwise, thank you very much, guys, for joining me. It's been a pleasure, as always. And always fun getting stuff done at bare minimum. And also, I'm learning a lot about command line now. And, feature directory specify yeah, there we go. Cool. Well, I don't see anything else popping up, and I don't think the delay is so bad anymore that you guys should be like seeing or catching or missing anything. So I'm just gonna say thanks, and oh, there's of course the moment I say, oh, I don't see any. There they are. What dev tools am I using? Honestly, I'm just using everything that comes with Unity. So the Unity engine itself and Mono Develop. As much as I don't like Mono Develop, it's what I'm using. It's what I'm stuck with. One of those just kind of how it goes setups. Don't know why I hit update on that SVN, because there's nothing to update. But yeah, it's just good old Unity 5.12. I'm not on the most up-to-date patch. I don't particularly care. And yeah, Mono Develop underneath that. Paint.net when I need pixely, graphicsy things, but I haven't needed that much yet. I've found nothing but open source art, so no need for me to spend time working on art things. Alright. Well, thanks guys again for joining me. I'll catch you all next time. Unfortunately, I know that won't be tomorrow at probably. Probably not Thursday either. We'll see. I'll see when I can squeeze some time in. We'll play this by ear. Thanks again for joining me, guys. I will catch you all next time.